Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christy, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. I am so honored to have my guest today, and I think you are going to get tons of practical information that you can use right away. But before we jump into all of that, I need you to follow this podcast. It's so important because that's how other people can find me. And you know what? I have interviewed some unbelievable people, today included, and you need to hear these folks, but you won't if you don't follow. So follow. And take time to share this too, because I guarantee there's somebody in your life who could use a little simplicity, which is what we're going to talk about today. So I have with me Erin Port, and Erin has a dynasty really now called Simple Purposeful Living. And she shares all kinds of beautiful things, but she's much more than that. She's a mom of 4. She is a teacher turned entrepreneur, which is after my own heart, because that is exactly what I am too. And her heart is simply to help people. So Erin, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
This is going to be a lot of fun. I have no doubt, but people only listen until they decide they don't want to listen anymore. So you've got about 30 seconds to convince people that this interview is going to be worth listening. So what would you share with people?
Well, I'm a busy mom of 4, so I understand life is both busy and complicated, and we've never had more information at our disposal, but we've never felt more overwhelmed, left gasping for air, feeling like we're managing our lives. And I've lived long enough to know that we only get one life, and it's a gift. We've been on the wake-up list this morning, so I want to help people to simplify the things that they have to do so we can enjoy the life that we have right now, because so many people are just managing life, and I don't want them to waste it and fritter it away and then think, shoot, I should have done something with that.
Oh my gosh, you couldn't have said that any better. Clearly, you've got your message honed, my friend. And what I really liked most about what you just said is you were on the wake-up list today. And that's a great way to look at it, right? Everybody isn't that privileged. So because we woke up today, we have the opportunity to change lives. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So tell us a little bit more about how you do that, because my understanding is you are killing it with getting women to recognize that it doesn't have to be complicated to be great.
That's exactly right. I think for a lot of years, I felt guilty, like I was doing something wrong because I simplified key areas of my life, routines and planning and habits. And I had this spare time, and I was like, what am I doing wrong? What have I missed? Because the culture tells us if we hustle more, we work harder, that's where we achieve success. And I had this space in my life, and I was like, actually, that's a gift that I can give other women, is I can help them efficiently do the things that they have to do, simplify the things that they have to do so that they have more space in their lives, because we crave space, right? When you go open a cabinet and it's full of clutter and you're just overwhelmed, what I basically do is help women take things out of the cabinet, leave space so they can see the things that matter to them. It's easy to grab for them, and it is just more efficient. So that's what I love to do. And I always remind people, we are really good at overcomplicating everything. We just are. That's how our culture, that's how we're made. And so really it's just pulling it back and being like, I always ask myself the question, how can I make this easier? What can I do to make this simpler? It doesn't have to be this complicated. And in that process, I make it more efficient, and I help others to get the permission slip that it's okay to be simple. It doesn't have to be fancy. And it's, a lot of times we know that innately, but when somebody comes alongside us and says, hey, you don't have to do it that way, it's okay. It's still meaningful if it's simple. You can still make memories if you're not going on a fancy 6-figure vacation or whatever, which sometimes we can feel like we're letting our families down or whatever. And so just really giving the women that I serve the permission slip. And then as a leader, leading by example. I think that that's really important, to lead from a place of, I'm doing it right along with you. I understand the struggles you're facing, but here's how we're going to overcome that.
Oh my goodness, so many things. And I'm going to take you back to your teacher days, because you used the phrase permission slip. And I know that you were an educator. I am an educator. We are once an educator, always an educator. Yep. Let's be honest. But you taught littles. You taught 1st and 4th grade. Is that right?
1st and 2nd grade. Yep.
I don't know where I got fourth grade. Okay. And then you taught teachers, which is also
Mhm.
something that I've done. And something that I'm realizing, because this podcast is designed for leaders who want to do it differently, right? People
Mm,
who want to embrace the fact that they have a little more control than they realize. And
mm,
so what you and I both know to be true is, to be an educator, you have to be unbelievably on point, right? Like, you have to be able to compartmentalize, able to organize, declutter, figure it out. And if you're not able to do that, you tend to be pretty frustrated. So how
mhm.
have you managed to take the skills that you learned to be a teacher and turn that into a career outside of education, that is legitimately changing lives?
So a lot of what I learned as a teacher, I always say nothing in your previous life is ever wasted. So I have been given so many opportunities looking back. I can say, oh, that helped me hone this skill and that helped me hone this skill. And basically, I've taken everything that I knew as an educator, a lesson plan, my goal for my students, and I basically just applied that to simple purposeful living, with the goal being I want to help busy women simplify their lives. Okay, so then what are the objectives? I'm going to teach them what are the subjects, if you will, like organization and decluttering and routine. And I've also learned from education that repetition makes just everything easier, right? And so my husband's, we were talking, and we have a slogan to get out of the house in the morning. We say, breakfast, dressed, socks, shoes, out the door. And my kids just know that breakfast, dressed, socks, shoes, out the door. But the reason that is, it makes it easy for them. It uncomplicates our morning routine. And so I think just taking what I learned as a teacher and applying that to my business. And you talk about compartmentalize. I think for me, even though I work from home, I close my doors to my office on the weekend. That is my time to be with my family. I'm offline. Again, I want to practice what I preach. And I think it's important for us to take time offline. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to compartmentalize this, leave it, because I find that as I'm the best leader when I put it down and go do something else. That's where the energy and the joy and the creativity sparks. And then I can bring that enthusiasm back to my community Monday through Friday.
My gosh, so powerful. And just recognizing the need for rest. I think I am really good at telling other people that they should take a
Mhm.
break. We have a rule on my team, and that's that no emails after 5 o'clock, no work after 5 o'clock. That's your time with your family. And if something is on fire, which is very rare, then we'll text you. But we're not going to communicate with you on business terms after business hours. And that's what you're doing. You're shutting the door. You're saying, all right, I'm gonna separate this from that. Did you learn that by design or by default?
Well, so I have a successful dad. He is a CEO of a metals business, and he made the mistake of not drawing that line and living in regret as he got older that he did not prioritize as well as he should have. He kind of leaned into that. If I just work a little harder, I'll climb the ladder and I can. And he had some regret. And so I learned from his mistake, right? And he was very forthcoming with that of like, I should have prioritized things differently,
Yeah.
and he has rectified that and changed that for his grandkids now, but I took that and I remembered how I felt,
Mm.
and I wanna make sure one of our core values at Simple Purposeful Living is faith and family always above revenue. That is one of our
Love it.
core values, and my assistant right now is going through cancer, and I tell her that all the time, like, "You you matter more to me than what you bring to the table. You as a human." I think so often as leaders, we can start to just see people as what they can bring to the table.
Yeah.
And those little things of like caring for them as a human, remembering that they have a soul and a family, and that is their number one priority, not what they do for this, right? And I think as leaders we can think, well, we're so important. I can do this. I'm so important. They need me. They need my information. No, they don't. Nobody on my deathbed is going to be, well, what is the simple thing you're going to tell me today? No, it's going to be my family. So I think that having that in the back of my mind always helps keep me on course.
Ah, well, and again, this audience is meant to be people who want to do it differently, want to do it
Mhm,
better. And you just broke a generational chain, right?
mhm,
Of, okay, we work really, really hard. That's a great trait.
mhm,
And it can be to your detriment if you don't
mhm,
recognize that sometimes you have to back off. I'm terrible at it. I am terrible at remembering, oh yeah, by the way, I need to stop. And maybe that's because I
mhm.
work full time and am starting a business.
Yeah.
Do big things. And I have a family that I love very much and a husband of 25 years who makes me happy and I want to spend time with and kids who are grown but still stick around. And yeah, sometimes my priorities get out of whack. So it sounds to me like you are purposeful in making sure that those priorities stay intact. So what advice would you give to somebody if they're feeling a little out of whack, like things aren't in line like they should be?
Well, I always tell people, have you ever been on a bullet train? I was on a bullet train when we went and adopted our youngest in China, and you get up to like 350 kilometers an hour. It's crazy fast, and you can't, like, the view out the window is just a blur. And that is our life most days, right? And so I always tell people it's counterintuitive to slow the train down, but that is exactly what we need to do because what happens is we're moving so fast that we're not able to take stock. And so I tell people to regularly, I get up in the morning and it's not to be productive, quote unquote, right? Because we think of productivity in a certain light, like we're producing something. But there's this other side of productivity of like sitting and self-reflecting that is so powerful and undervalued in our culture today of like, where am I? Am I taking stock? Am I listening to my body? Like this morning, I've been battling migraines and I started to feel one coming on and I was like, okay, I need to put my phone down. I need to take some supplements. I need to rest. Like, but it's our intuition just to power through.
Yeah.
And so I tell people, slow the train down. You can change course. You get that privilege, right? And then determine what your priorities are and make sure your life is aligning to your priorities. Because you can have a full life that aligns with your priorities and you're going to be fulfilled. Or you can have a full life doing the things that you think you have to do and it's going to feel out of alignment because you're not prioritizing what matters.
Yeah, yeah, and well, you just went where we were headed, so we're gonna stay there for a minute. You defined productivity, and I recently have shifted from the word busy to productive. And
Mm,
if what I'm doing to be busy isn't productive, then why am I doing it, right? Like
mm,
that's my new shift in using the word because we all say, "Oh, I'm so busy."
yeah.
Yeah, and that's a choice. So are you being productive with your busyness or are you just being
Yeah.
busy? But what would you or how would you define productive joy if you had to add the word joy on the end of productivity?
Mm, that's a good question. Again, I think it's aligning with your priorities. What matters to you? Doing simple purposeful living, I feel like I'm cheating a little bit at life because I love what I do so much. You've heard it said, like, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And so sometimes when people will be like, what are your hobbies? I'm like, I don't know. I love doing this. Right. But I would say productive joy is like knowing who you are, knowing what brings you joy, and then purposely pursuing that. So for me, my values of like helping others, that's huge for me. Loving my family and spending time with them, those things bring me joy. It doesn't mean every day is easy. I loved, you said a couple of weeks on your podcast ago that happiness and joy are two different things. Happiness is fleeting and joy is a choice. And I think that that's so powerful that we get to choose and sometimes we have to push through our feelings and take action even when we don't feel like it. And that I think is so powerful too. Because there are days we're not going to feel like it, right? Our kids
Yeah.
maybe are a little crabby or whatever, but there's joy on the other side.
Ah, so well said. So well said. And I appreciate, yeah, going back multiple times to aligning with your
Mhm.
priorities. I think we forget to even set them sometimes, right?
Mhm.
So if somebody asks you what are your top most important things that you accomplish in a day, maybe we can say it, maybe we can't. But in
Yeah.
life, sometimes we totally miss the opportunity to say, these are my objectives. This is my priority. This is what I'm gonna do. And here's how I'm gonna do it. And if things aren't pointing in that direction, then we need to stop. So have you ever driven past a car dealership, a used car dealership in particular, and you know the little guy that does this?
Yes.
It's all over the place. For those of you not watching, we're talking about the blow up guy with the arm.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes that's how we're going in life, right? No direction, no idea where we're headed. But if we have really clear priorities, that's like setting a target. And
Mhm.
when we have that very clear target, everything we're doing should be driving towards
Mhm.
that target. So what advice would you give to somebody who feels like the little guy that's all
Mhm.
over the place and needs some help setting priorities?
Mhm.
How do you help people figure out what their target is?
Well, I actually have a really practical exercise with this because I think when you say I'm aligning my life with my values and my priorities, sometimes it feels super vague. Like, okay, yeah, my values are my family, my faith, my health, my career. Okay, but like, what does that look like in my day to day life? Like, how do I know? And so, what I suggest people to do is grab a journal. I have a gratitude journal. And for a week, and I'll tell you why in a week, for a week, write down things that bring you joy, that you remember, that you think, oh, yeah, that was really fulfilling to me. So for me, it's like sitting on my back deck, sitting and having family dinner. My husband and I go on a weekly walk. That brings me joy. Having lunch with a friend. Okay. And then what I want you to do is after a week, you're going to have a list of maybe 60 things. I want you to look at that list and start to highlight. You can take a couple of highlighters and highlight like, this is a priority for my family. This is a priority. This is where the priority of my work shows up. This is where the priority of my health shows up. This is what matters to me. And what you're going to start to see is your values practically played out in your daily life. And you're also going to see whole, like, okay, well, I say that my health is a priority, but I'm not seeing anything show up that's bringing value to my life for my health. Okay, so that gives me kind of now like, where can I add that into my life? Or what are some things that can help me? And that gives legs to priorities so that if you continue to do this week over week, you're going to say, oh, okay, my life is starting to align to the things that I say matters to me. And I think that's really important for people to be able to do that. And then when you feel like you're out of alignment, you can look back and say, like, what is missing? Oh, I haven't had family dinner with my family for 6 days. Now, here's the caveat I always tell people, do it for a week because we can get into the 24-hour track, which is really dangerous, right? We think, oh, I didn't accomplish a priority for my faith, family, career, and my health all in 24 hours. But can you do it in a week? Like, can you do it in the 168 hours you have in a week? Probably more likely. So I always tell people, don't just look at a 24 hours that's incomplete data. Look at a week span. But that really has helped me define what matters and then purposely plan for that in my schedule. And then here's where the synergy of simple purposeful living comes in. Now that I know what matters, I can simplify everything in my life to get to that. So if family dinner matters to me, I'm going to meal plan because that's going to simplify the process of getting to meal planning. Or I want to have lunch with my plans or with my friends. That's a priority to me. So now I'm going to simplify the process by just putting it on the calendar, having a standing date. So that's how I get to help you then. It's once you name what matters, then I get to simplify the process to get there.
That's beautiful. And to me, that's the whole beliefs drive behaviors concept, right? So if I believe that health is important, then my behaviors are going to show that I'm going to get to the gym or I'm going to eat well or I'm going to sleep well or whatever it is in my health. And you really do help people do that. So you've mentioned a couple tools, but I'd love for you to share just a few of the things that you have available that do this for people. And not that they don't have to put in the work. Anybody can be handed a book and say, here, do this. But if you don't do it, forget it. But what are some tools that you've created over the years that will help people figure it out?
Yes, I always say the magic happens in the process, not the tools. We just make the tools to help simplify the process. So that's what we do. But we have a line of paper products. We have a 52-week meal planner with the goal of simplifying meal planning. It's the number one way to simplify your life. People hate when I say it, but it is true. It will save your sanity, your time, your money. You're not going to go to the grocery store as much. That saves time. You're going to eat more of the food, which is going to save you money, all those sorts of things. We also have a brain dump notepad because people wake up thinking, I'm so busy. I have so much to do. And part of it is we have all of this brain clutter swirling around in our brains. But if we get it down on paper, A, we're 42% more likely to get it done. And B, we can look at that list and prioritize, which then gives us a better itinerary. So now we're not going from Chicago to New York to LA. We're going from New York to Chicago to LA, and we're way more efficient with our time. And then also with goal setting, again, writing it down and then celebrating little bits of progress. We are an all or nothing society. If it's not all, we're going to do nothing. I told my husband this morning, we went on a walk. We both had interviews to do. And I said, let's go on a some walk. And I said, the reason I say some is because daily consistency pays off. Even if you can't do it all, I'm glad that I woke up and I took a walk today. And so the goal setting helps us to celebrate the simple progress. We have happy notes to spread encouragement and joy to others because I believe that joy is a contagion, like just like bad attitudes, positive attitudes, right? And as a leader, that's my goal is to be a light and to be a joy to my community because that will then ripple into their community. So we saw all those products in hopes of simplifying the processes to get to what matters.
Well, and it's clearly simple because you were able to rattle them off, and that only happens when they all make sense, right? So you mentioned your 52-week meal planner, your brain dump journal or notepad. Not a bad idea. That's great. Goal setting, like you've got everything in a package that makes sense.
Mhm.
And so the way that you and I got introduced is one of my former students, who's now my assistant, said, I listen to this lady all the time and I think you should love her. And she's absolutely right. And Bailey is a mother of three who all of them are young and she's just trying to figure it all out, right? And you have given very practical advice to her. And all I had to do was type in Erin Port and simple purposeful living. You're right. You did create a bit of a tongue twister there.
Sorry.
Simple, purposeful living. And all I had to actually get to was the word simple, and up you came. But if people really want to find you, which is important, you're on here so that your word can get spread. How would they find you? What's the best way?
So Instagram is where we are at Simple Purposeful Living. We're also on Facebook. We have a weekly podcast called the Simple Purposeful Living Podcast. We have a website full of helpful articles, and that's where you can find our paper print products, simplepurposefulliving.com. And I just announced I'm writing 2 books with HarperCollins. So those will be launching in 2026 and 2027 with the hope of bringing this message of you just have to make a simple change to have a profound impact. I think so often we think we need a life overhaul. And for so many of us, one more thing just feels overwhelming. And so all I'm asking my community to do is make a teeny tiny tweak. And here's the thing. If it doesn't work, it didn't take much effort. We can just continue to tweak our way to success. And that feels doable for people. And I get to cheer them on along the way.
I love that. I love that. And one of my favorite episodes of yours that was the how to dress, like how to simplify what you're wearing. And I literally walked into my closet after I listened and I was like, oh, I got some work to do. Yeah, we need to make this a whole heck of a lot easier than it is right now. So y'all find Erin. She is remarkable and practical, which I just love. So I have some rapid fire questions for you. Are you excited? Okay.
I love rapid fire. I do this on my podcast too.
I know. I heard it. Yes, great minds think alike. Okay, here we go. What is your definition of fun?
Spending time with my family, going on an adventure. Even if it's tomorrow, we're going to pick out flowers for Mother's Day. And I'm so excited. We're going to have ice cream and pick out flowers. Just getting out with my family and making memories.
Okay, so define family. Who do you go with?
So I have my husband. We've been married 18 years. I have a 14-year-old son, a 12-year-old daughter, an 8-year-old daughter, and a 6-year-old son. So I think the older they get, the more you just value that time, right? Because you're realizing they're flying the nest soon. I'm in the launching season, I feel like.
Yeah. Oh, you definitely are. And then they come back. It's interesting how they boomerang.
Okay.
They go like this. They go and then they come back, which is a great thing. It's fun to watch them grow for sure. Okay. How do you know that you're showing up as your authentic self?
I think as a leader, being honest about the hard. I think for a lot of people, they want to be like these shiny plastic people presenting themselves as perfection. And what I have found is that when you show a crack, people gravitate towards that, right? Even when I shared writing about this book, I didn't want people to think like, she wrote a book. No, like it has been 16 months. I had to throw out my first book proposal. I had to hire a writing coach because they told me I needed help. Look, being authentic and just saying like, hey, I don't have this all figured out. I'm right there with you, but we're going to figure it out together. And I think just the more courage that you have, I have found that if you're willing to step out, courage gives way to confidence. And that's how you find confidence, is just courageously showing up as yourself.
My goodness, I love that. I love it. I love it. Okay. How do you channel your best self on your worst days?
Okay, so I thought about this because my biggest thing with my kids is step away. I know it is counterintuitive, but in our nature, we just think if I grind a little harder, I work a little harder. But what I have found is change the scenery, go on a walk, go on a drive, switch up your routine, eat something because I don't know, hangriness makes us hangry.
Amen.
Make sure you're getting enough sleep because half of the United States is not getting enough sleep, and burning the candle at both ends is not going to give you your best work. So I would say, just like if I am feeling, oh, what can I do to help myself kind of move past that? It's funny how you can like wake up the next morning after a good night's sleep and a good meal and like feel like the world is right again.
I can do this. I'm going to be okay. So,
Yeah.
so true. All right, Erin, last question. What is, if people can only remember one thing that you've said today, of all the wonderful, brilliant things that you've said, what's the one thing that you really want people to walk away with?
You only get one life, and I want people to live it to their best ability. And so you don't have to live just managing it. You can really make a simple tweak here and there to love the life you have right where you are. And I'm willing to do it. I'm the cheerleader, I'm the permission slip. Come on over and I'll help you show the way because you really can love your life. I am a testament to that, and you are as well. Like, there is the possibility of loving your life. And at the end of the day, when you're in your rocking chair, if we're given the blessing of old age, I want to look back and say, I stewarded this one life I had really well. And I want that for my community members too.
Well, and your dad taught you that, right? Like he didn't have to wait until the end to recognize that maybe there's a better way. And I think generationally we're getting better at not making that mistake, right? Like I think about our Gen Zers, my kids, and they are better at balance. I am 47 and not good at balance. I think, okay, I have to go all in on this, but actually it's okay to back off. And that's really what you're teaching people is, if you're organized with what you're doing, then you have the space to back off and push forward in the ways that you want to.
And we don't have to, just because the world says this is what you should do. It's okay to say, you know what, that doesn't work for me. I can be happy for people throwing elaborate birthday parties or, doing whatever. And I can say, yay for them. This, I'm gonna do something different. It's hard to go against the grain, but once you get used to it, you're like, this is the way to go.
Yeah. Well, and before we started recording, one of the things that you mentioned is, we were both educators of educators, which means we were teaching teachers, for those of you that aren't in the educational space. And they're not always the best students. Sometimes they just don't understand why you're there. And you mentioned that that's helped you with the trolls on the internet, right? Like we all have those people that are going to say, you don't know what you're talking about. You not come up with a reason why someone would look at you and think, nope, she doesn't know what she's talking about. You are so great at not only just getting your point across, but getting it across in a way that I can turn around and use, which is a gift. You have a gift, and I am so grateful that you chose to share your gift with us today. So thank you for being here and for being awesome.
Well, thank you. I hope it leads to productive joy because at the end of the day, that's what we want, both of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So friends, you just got a masterclass in all things simplification, and we're so grateful that Erin chose to spend her time and talent with us. And my goal for you, as always, is just that you find one little nugget of wisdom, something that you can use right away so that you can figure out a way to turn fun into action.